What is your creepy mimic / skinwalker encounter experience? Story 1. This isn't the first paranormal encounter I've had, but it is only the second time someone was with me when something strange and inexplicable happened. We moved into the new house we're currently living in October of last year. I should mention, the house we came from also had its share of really creepy happenings, and there is one event that I feel is connected to what happened in the new house. I was home alone with my dog, reading on my bed. My parents at the time were remodeling their bathroom and had met with the man who would be doing the job at the home improvement store down the block to look at tiles. Now, this whole encounter is quick and over in a matter of seconds, if I'm going to be honest with you, but even now, years later, I struggle to get out with shaky hands on my keyboard. Before I get on with it, I just want to say I was in near silence, meaning no music was playing, no TV, my laptop was off and charging, I was not on my phone, no headphones in. Basically, I wasn't doing anything that would cause a noise, and seeing as I was home alone, the only source of a human voice would have been me. The only sound that could be heard was the sound of the AC, so I was on my bed reading. My dog was downstairs, presumably napping since he was like 12 years old at the time. He's still kicking, he's 17, and has a heart condition that causes him to get tired easily. All of a sudden, I hear my mom's voice greeting the dog like she always does when she comes home, and I mean exactly the way she does, switching between English and Spanish, the same tone, everything. I stood up and stretched, but realized I hadn't heard the door open. So I approached the stairs and very confusedly called out to my mom. "Mom?" Silence, and then my dog started screaming. I mean screaming as if he was being tortured, crying and whining, and I started calling out to him, scared out of my mind. I took the first step of the stairs down and immediately froze. Something felt so very wrong. I was flushed with this fear. I knew without a doubt that whatever greeted my dog was not my mom. Whatever it was, it literally froze me with fear. My dog finally came running up, zoomed right past me, into my room, headed into my bathroom, and hid behind the toilet. Mind you, through tears and shaky hands, I did call my mom. I practically blew her phone up, but all I got was voicemail. That was the first time something like that had happened to me, and I knew I couldn't just explain it off and shelve it in the back of my mind. Later, when my mom got home and I told both my parents what happened, they brushed it off and thought I was just imagining things. The second time is actually what I'm writing this post on. It happened in November of last year, but in between moving and settling in, finding a new job, my grandmother's declining health, and how scared crapless my mom was now has been the only time I've gotten to keep calm and tell the story of my second encounter with what I now refer to as the Mimic. This new house we moved into was built literally a month before we moved in, the neighborhood still under construction. My mom and I were sitting in the family room giving each other pedicures. My stepfather had gone out with my grandfather to run some errands. We were watching something on Netflix when we both heard my stepdad come in through the front door. My mom called out to him, "Are you okay?" To which we both heard him respond, "Yeah, honey, I'm good." We heard him open the garage door and go in, obviously thinking nothing of it. 20 minutes pass, and we both nearly jump out of our skins when my grandfather opens the backyard door in the family room, peeks his head in, and asks us to open the garage when we had a chance so they could unload the groceries. My mom and I look at each other, again confused as it seems to be an ongoing theme, and she tells him, "Isn't it open? He just came in." We both look at each other, and she starts calling out to him, but my grandfather cuts her off and tells her that's impossible because my stepdad was out back. We go out to look, and there, getting out of his car, not to confuse anyone, we have a huge backyard, fenced in, and my parents are in the midst of fixing up the backyard of this new house, so my grandfather has gone to the home improvement store to pick up some supplies and cement blocks to stand in the barbecue on. That's why they had brought the car to the back, was my stepdad. I look at my mom to see she has the same petrified look on her face. My stepdad, still getting out of the car, not looking at us, goes, "Sorry guys, I left the house key by accident. Can you open the garage door so we can unload the groceries?" Second fridge and garage, 6 people in one home, guys. My mom takes off inside with me, trailing behind her, and lo and behold, the lock on the front door was still on and the garage door was still locked as well. Guys, I can't even explain how terrifying that was for my mom and me. We don't speak of it. That day, my parents fought for hours, my mom thinking it was my stepdad playing some kind of prank on her, but that clearly was not the case. Later that night, when my mom was alone, I approached her and I asked what she thought about what happened. My mom looked at me very sharply, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "Don't ever talk about this again. Don't." I didn't think to connect the two experiences till now. That is really creepy, but it leaves the question of just what the heck the mimic wanted. Like, there seems to be no evidence of it bothering you or doing anything. Nothing missing from the house, not trying to insult here, but it seems so pointless, you know? Even ghost stories with random things being moved and whatnot feel like they can be explained as just restless spirits being restless, but this thing seems to have no motive or reason aside from briefly tricking you and scaring the crap out of your dog. Creepy. Story 2. Most recently, last night, I was accidentally locked out of my apartment. My first thought was that this was due to a misunderstanding. I live with my little sister, and she probably thought I was asleep in my room before she locked the deadbolt and put the bar down that keeps the door shut, in case someone tried to kick it in. Both of us had company over, and I was taking my boyfriend back to his apartment down the street. We left pretty late, and when I came back alone, I found that I couldn't open the door, even though I had unlocked the lock from the outside. I knocked pretty hard on the door, but it was close to 3 a.m. and I didn't want to wake my neighbors up. My sister wouldn't answer calls or texts. My best move was to head to my boyfriend's to pass the time until I could come back with the sun being up. When we came back at around 8 a.m., she still wasn't answering her phone. My boyfriend then climbed the balcony and was able to get in through the patio door. Thank God it was actually unlocked. He let me in after unlocking the deadbolt and moving the kick bar, and we passed out in my room for several hours. I texted my sister when I woke up to ask why she locked me out, and she told me that when she was walking her friend out to the door, right by my bedroom, she checked to make sure I was there. I was confused because by this time I had left with my boyfriend. She said that she called out and asked if I was there, and she heard my voice answer back, "Yes, I'm here," as in for the night. I don't typically speak like this. I usually just say, "Yeah, I'm here," in response. She heard that confirmation and then let her friend out and locked the keyed lock and deadbolt and put down the kick bar. Strangely enough, her friend also heard a man's voice in the room very briefly, which they assumed was my boyfriend. The other time my sister and I had a similar encounter was at the house we last lived in. I was downstairs when she asked through my upstairs bedroom door if I wanted to come have food with her. She heard a laugh and "you're funny" in my voice, muffled through the door of course, but she thought it was me. She dismissed it as me being on the phone or in a weird mood. Within about a minute of that happening, I called up the stairway to her and she poked her head down. She was very shocked to see me at the bottom since she didn't hear me open the bedroom door or walk by her room. She explained that she thought I was in my room just now, but I told her I had been downstairs for about half an hour cooking. I remember feeling a little creeped out, but decided if I stressed over it, I would just make things worse. I resolved to myself that realistically there isn't much I can do either way. We have had past creepy or hard to explain experiences in that last house before while we were growing up. Objects moving places unexplainably, a piano that made a single note play. My sister actually saw things in her room and heard her voice called out. I'm starting to wonder if whatever this is has followed us to our new apartment. A side note, when we first moved our stuff into this new place, I would often feel like someone was standing a couple feet to my side in my peripheral vision. I would turn and say hi because I kept thinking it was my boyfriend or sister, but of course nothing was there. In all honesty, I don't feel any intense fear from these experiences. I'm more worried for my sister's sake. She gets more anxious when these things occur. I tend to go to the ignore it and it'll ignore you route. My first instinct for the first story was that your sister called out and someone else in the apartment complex answered without thinking or something and she heard them. I don't know, feels like a long shot, and without a detailed rundown I could be totally off base here, but that immediately popped into my head. Now, as far as the previous house, obviously not an apartment, so that explanation is harder to accept. The best I can say is my old go-to infrasound, a frequency caused in houses by wiring and whatnot. I can't fully explain it, but I recommend looking it up. It can cause feelings of dread or being watched, along with very mild auditory and visual hallucinations in some people. It's a big culprit in hauntings and could certainly explain some of this stuff. But then again, I can offer explanations all I want, but it isn't proof. What really occurred? Well, who's to say? Story 3. Okay, so I know Skinwalker stories are incredibly cliched. You know, with all those green text stories, it's a surprise that Skinwalkers are still considered a myth, despite the fact that everyone and their mother have encountered one. I'm only saying this is a Skinwalker experience because I can't think of another creature that fits the description, so here we go. A while ago, when I was in early high school, I was left alone at home for some reason. I can't remember the reason, but I was left home alone a lot after reaching my teenage years. So a little info on my house is that although I don't live in a rural area, I certainly wouldn't call the area civilized. There are barns within walking distance of my house. I guess the area is developing because there are also subdivisions around. Also, my house has a sliding glass door that leads to a deck in the back. So, I was home alone when I heard a knock at the door. It's common for my parents to sometimes leave the house without their house keys, so sometimes I would have to let them in when they got back. My family has a special knock that we use so whoever's inside knows that it's one of us. This knock didn't sound like one my family would use, so I just ignored it because I didn't want to deal with some stranger at the door. Whoever it was knocked again in a more familiar pattern, so I reluctantly went to the door. When I got there, I didn't notice anyone out front. I figured that whoever it was just left because I took my sweet time getting to the door. Then I guess I heard a sound or something coming from the back sliding glass door. Another thing members of my family do is if no one answers the door, they'll try to find another way, such as the back door. So I went to the back door and didn't notice anyone outside. I slightly opened the sliding door and heard a voice. It sounded like my mother coming from underneath the deck, I guess. I only say this because I definitely heard that voice, but my mother wasn't in view of me. I can't exactly remember what the voice said, but it was something like, "Open the door," and it said my name. Now, I'm a super paranoid guy, and I know my mom wouldn't be hiding if she wanted to come inside, so I shut the door, pulled the blinds over, and went to my room. Hours later, and my mom actually shows up, and I tell her what happened. She confirmed that she was not at the house earlier and did not try to get me to open the back door. So for years, I didn't really know what to make of this experience. It was a very minor thing, but it spooked the hell out of me. I say this was probably a skinwalker because I don't know any other paranormal entities that would mimic a person's voice to try and get inside your house. Damn, such a simple little story, but this one creeps me out way more than the others. I don't know why. Maybe because it has that Appalachian feel to it. If you know, you know. Like, this feels like something with a sinister purpose, and it is following some rules. For some reason, that kind of stuff gets to me. And the mother's voice coming from under the deck? Nope, no thank you. It has that knowledge of humans it is mimicking, but without fully understanding that that isn't right. Just wrong enough to mess with you. No, I'm sorry, that is creepy as all hell. I'm gonna hold on to my infrasound explanation for this one as well, because without it, all I'm left with is me muttering, "I'm a skeptic," from under my covers tonight. Story 4. I think there may be some type of mimic in my house. Let me start by saying the house my family, myself, and my girlfriend live in has no shortage of paranormal activity. Literally, someone has something happen to them every day. A few months back, I was downstairs cleaning and my father was in the next town over running errands. I looked up from cleaning and saw something that looked just like my father walking down the stairs and into the bathroom. Fast forward to this week, my girlfriend was downstairs gathering some ammo for a range day and I was upstairs. She heard my voice come from behind her say something unintelligible, followed by some whistling. The next time, my girlfriend and I were walking into the house and past the top of the stairs where she froze. She saw my brother at the bottom of the stairs where our laundry machines are. At that time of night, he's usually in bed for work in the morning. We went straight to his room upstairs to double check, and there he was asleep. What the F is this thing? I've had plenty of experiences with the supernatural spanning my whole life, but I've never dealt with something that mimics people. What can we do? Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.